Also breaking tonight, a sharp divide between House Democrats as they battled over how to condemn what many saw as anti-Semitism from their freshman member, Ilhan Omar. Her supporters appear to have won here tonight, leading to an 8-page resolution that threw in every kind of hate you could imagine, practically. An official proclamation that, if you didn't realize it, hate is bad. In a moment reminiscent of the debate over Black Lives Matter versus All Lives Matter, it seems in this case they went with All Hate Matters. And those who wanted her to be called out for anti-Semitism are not getting what they wanted tonight. So they produced a document that condemns anti-Semitism, anti-Islamic acts, white supremacists, citing many of the recent horrific crimes that we've seen, but also reaches back to a cornucopia of hate that would appear to many to have been long agreed upon, such as the incarceration of Americans of Japanese descent during World War II, the loyalty of President John F. Kennedy being questioned because of his Catholic faith, the Dreyfus affair, and Muslim bigotry post 9/11. So this document is 8 pages. You can see now how actual legislation often turns out to be 5,000, 10,000 pages at times, and perhaps why Congress has an approval rating of 18%. Something to think about tonight. Earlier, I spoke with former Connecticut Senator and Vice Presidential candidate Joe Lieberman, who's been very outspoken on all of this, and asked him if we really need a resolution to say that we all agree that hate is bad.
I read the resolution, and it reminds me of the old line that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. So this is a resolution drafted by a caucus. So it started out being a resolution to condemn anti-Semitism because of the anti-Semitic remarks made by Congresswoman Omar. Yeah. Her name is left out, and now...
Do you agree with that her name is left out?
I don't. I mean, I think this resolution, as it's passed, though it's a bit of a hodgepodge, nonetheless is a statement against all forms of hatred. As your introduction said, it went way back to the Dreyfus affair and John F. Kennedy's Catholicism, etc. But okay, let's say it's a basic statement against hatred. But really what the House of Representatives still has to do, and it didn't do today, is to call out and hold accountable Congresswoman Omar for the anti-Semitic comments it made. This is the way, look, what people in public life say matters. And if the House of Representatives doesn't deal specifically in response to what Congresswoman Omar said, it's going to give a message to other people in Congress the next time they want to get up and say something racist or homophobic or against another religion. So I think they only did part of the job today.
I mean, a resolution doesn't have much teeth anyway. It just says, here's something we all agree on. So when you have a resolution that doesn't even call out the behavior that you discussed, it seems like it has even less grit to it. CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, has just put out this statement. Unfortunately, this resolution was introduced to silence legitimate criticism of domestic support for the discriminatory and segregationist policies of a foreign government that received billions of American taxpayer dollars. What do you say to that, Senator?
Well, that's just not true. Fortunately, in my opinion, there is broad bipartisan support for a strong U.S.-Israel relationship and for our fellow democracy, Israel. Occasionally, there are people who object to specific Israeli policies. That's appropriate in our democracy. What Congresswoman Omar said was not just a reasoned disagreement with the policies of the Israeli government. It was just plain anti-Semitic, going back to raising questions of dual loyalty, of Jewish money. It's deeply offensive. I mean, I always say to people when I speak that, I feel blessed to have been born in America, and I love this country. That is the typical reaction of American Jews. A lot of American Jews and Christians also profoundly support Israel, but that's not at all in conflict with our devotion first to America.
It seemed at first she was conciliatory in response to the first round of comments, but now she's not. She's pushing back, and I think you could make an argument looking at this resolution that she won that battle. And James Clyburn said this, which I want to see what you think about. He said, there are people who tell me, well, my parents are Holocaust survivors. My parents did this. It's more personal with her. I've talked to her. I can tell you she is living through a lot of pain. So he's referring to her background as a Somali, born in Somalia, who lived in a Kenyan refugee camp. What do you make of that comment?
Well, I'm surprised. I know Jim Clyburn. He's a fine person. I'm surprised he said that. First off, I can tell you, to be really personal about this, my wife, Hadassah, is the child of survivors. She grew up in a household where her mother, who was in Auschwitz, screamed out in the middle of her sleep at night because of nightmares about what she went through. I'm sure Congresswoman Omar went through some hell in Somalia, but it's no excuse for coming here, getting elected to Congress, having the special responsibility that goes with being a member of Congress in our democracy, and making anti-Semitic statements. She really ought to be criticized for it by her colleagues in the House so it doesn't happen again, not just against Jews, but against any group in our society.
I mean, there is a line in here that rejects the perpetuation of anti-Semitic stereotypes, including the pernicious myth of dual loyalty and foreign allegiance, but it does not name her, as we said. When you look at what's happening in Europe and you look at the rise of anti-Semitism and hate crimes that we've seen here in the United States, and you see that this group in your party, in the House, that is getting together around some of these ideas, how much does that concern you?
Well, it concerns me a lot. I mean, look, it's hard to believe that anti-Semitism is beginning to express itself in Europe and in some ways in America. The kind of statements that Congresswoman Omar made, which are anti-Semitic, do not reflect the rank and file of the Democratic Party. But if people in the Democratic Party don't stand up respectfully and hold her accountable for her anti-Semitic remarks, then others are going to feel they can do the same, or they can take on other groups, religious, racial, or anything else, with hatred. And that undercuts the unity that has always been the great strength of America.
Senator Lieberman, thank you very much, sir. Good to have you with us tonight.
Thanks, Martha. Thank you.
This is a Fox News Alert. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. Tonight, Democrats are trying to minimize the self-inflicted damage from comments viewed as anti-Semitic by one of their high-profile freshman lawmakers. We're also at this hour awaiting the sentencing of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. First, the Democrats and anti-Semitism. What was once thought to be an easy fix, a public resolution, has turned into a political football. And Republicans, and even some Democrats, are saying the Democrat leadership in the House is fumbling that football. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel starts us off tonight from Capitol Hill with a vote that just wrapped up. Good evening, Mike.
Brett, good evening to you. The vote was 407-23 with Iowa's Steve King voting present. But this has been an epic struggle all week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi forced to defend one of her controversial and high-profile freshman members.
It's up to her to explain, but I do not believe that she understood the full weight of the words.
A reference to Minnesota Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who suggested those who support Israel have dual loyalty, and that being opposed to Prime Minister Netanyahu and, quote, the occupation is not the same as being anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitic resolution noted that the House of Representatives condemns anti-Semitic acts and statements as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contradictory to the values that define the people of the United States. But after an internal battle among Democrats, the name of the resolution was changed to anti-hate and was broadened to include a wide range of bigotry victims: Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, and others with verbal attacks, incitement, and violence.
We're sadly living in a time in this country where we're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, a rise in Islamophobia, a rise in racism and bigotry.
Rallying to Omar's defense, some of her fellow high-profile freshmen. New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been tweeting her defense of Omar to nearly 3.5 million followers. There seems to be no problem at all with a zero-tolerance stance for simply asking about U.S. foreign policy. And Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib went even further.
I can tell you, when she speaks about those issues, what I hear is her trying to uplift my grandmother in Palestine, in the West Bank, and saying that there are real, actual, factual evidence to show that there's human rights violations.
Republicans sounded stunned by the Civil War on the other side of the aisle.
There's a fracture, obviously, in the Democrat Party. There's a radical leftist fringe that's really intolerant, particularly towards our Jewish friends.
And now some Democrats are upset leadership caved.
And when one of our colleagues invokes the classic anti-Semitic tropes, the anti-Semitic language, that Jews control the world, that Jews care only about money, that Jews cannot be loyal Americans if they also support Israel, this too must be condemned.
Republicans say the shift to the left is shocking.
This is not your father's Democratic Party. If it was ever more obvious than today, I don't know when it was more obvious. They can't agree to condemn anti-Semitism.
Some sources suggest this signals possible trouble for Speaker Pelosi and her leadership team over the next 2 years when you consider this non-binding resolution was really quite a struggle this week. Brett?
Mike Emanuel live on the Hill. Mike, thanks.
There appears to be a huge inconsistency between what Michael Cohen told the House Judiciary Committee last week and what actually happened. At that hearing last Wednesday, Michael Cohen said very clearly that he never entertained the idea of a pardon by the president, nor would he. Let's listen to that part of his testimony right now.
I have never asked for, nor would I accept, a pardon from President Trump.
Tuesday of this week, we learned that Cohen's former attorney, Stephen Ryan, who you see there pictured on the left beside Cohen, had in fact approached President Trump's legal team, including Rudy Giuliani, about the possibility of a pardon. This was after the FBI raided Cohen's home offices, etc. And today, this statement from Cohen's spokesman, Lanny Davis, clarifying what Cohen told the committee last week prior to Michael Cohen's decision to leave the Joint Defense Group and tell the truth on July 2nd, 2018. Michael was open to the ongoing dangling of a possible pardon by Trump representatives privately and in the media. During that time, he directed his attorney, that would be Stephen Ryan, to explore possibilities of a pardon at one point with Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani, as well as other lawyers advising President Trump. But after July 2nd, 2018, Mr. Cohen authorized me as a new lawyer to say publicly Mr. Cohen would never accept a pardon from President Trump, even if offered. That continues to be the case, and his statement at the oversight hearing was true and consistent with his post-Joint Defense Agreement commitment to tell the truth. Now, Rudy Giuliani would not confirm whether Stephen Ryan had approached him about a pardon, but Rudy did tell Fox News that whenever they are asked about a pardon by any attorney or individual, they give the following standard answer, quote, "The president has said he will not consider any pardons now." Of course, that doesn't mean that he in any way is diminishing his constitutional power to make those decisions in the future. I mean, clearly here, Bill, there is a lot of parsing going on the part of Michael Cohen's representatives, because at no time during that congressional testimony last week, now we do not know what he said in the closed hearings, but in that open hearing, at no time did he say, "I never asked for a pardon after July 2nd, 2018, but I did before July 2nd, 2018. He simply said, very plainly, as you can see, "I never asked for, nor would I accept the pardon from the President of the United States." So we'll see where this goes, but I think a lot of people are going to start making hay about this.